I'm Yulia, the voice of the podcast Love to Heal, a journey of self-discovery, healing, and spiritual growth.
Today is the last day of Passover, and I thought it would be fun to invite a guest on this episode to talk about everything that my guest and I have learned about this holiday. So, please welcome to my husband, Roman. Hi, Roman.
Hello.
This is your first time doing this with me. I appreciate it. First time ever, yes. So I just thought it would be fun to share with everyone what we learned this year from Passover, because this is really the first year that we observed this holiday as best as we could, of course. There was a lot of new information for us. And we were actually lucky enough to be invited to our rabbi's Seder at their house. So we were I was really excited. I don't know about you. Were you excited?
Yeah, it was interesting.
We were a little bit nervous because we had heard that, these Seders, these dinners on Passover take a really long time, several hours. There's a ton of traditions and customs that you have to know. You have to know what to do, like drink tons of wine and all kinds of things. So we were just kind of like excited / nervous, but I think more so excited. And last Saturday, which was the first Seder night, we headed to our rabbi's house at around 8:00, right? They invited us. Mm-hmm. And basically, the rabbi's wife, she said, if you guys want to come around 8, we will have some snacks and appetizers. And then after that, we'll have time to just chat and socialize. And then the Seder wouldn't start until after it got dark. And so do you remember why we had to wait that long for the Seder to start?
Because all Jewish things start at sundown.
Yeah, pretty much. So, I think for Seder, the explanation was that for Passover, the Jews left Egypt after nightfall or something like that. But it's true. In Judaism, the day actually starts at sundown, right? So a lot of the holidays, such as Shabbat, which we observe every Friday, happens after it gets dark. So same thing was here. And because of the time change, the spring forward time, everything got pushed back to really late. So the actual Seder wouldn't start until almost 9:00, I believe. So yeah, we got there. There was some gefilte fish for us to munch on and some salads and things like that. And then kind of like naturally people split into two groups. So they actually invited, besides us, they invited another family, a husband and wife and 2 kids. And then there were 2 just single men that were, I don't know, like in their 60s or something, like retirees. And then there were some of the kids of our rabbi and his wife that, are not married yet and haven't left the household. They actually told us not to take our kids along because our kids are still young and the Seder wouldn't end until very late. So they didn't want them to fall asleep at the table. And so we left our kids at home. It was just my husband and I. And like I said, we kind of split into these 2 groups. I went to chat with the rabbi's wife, the Rebbitzin, and then her sister came over, and actually her mom came over, and then the other lady that was there with her husband. So we kind of talked a little bit about all kinds of things. Something that I really wanted to find out was how a true kosher kitchen works, because I had heard that Jewish Orthodox people have 2 of everything in the kitchen. 2 stoves, 2 fridges, 2 sinks. And then our Rebbitzin gave us a tour, and I realized that she only had 1 of everything. And I asked her, and she told me that this is not the norm at all, to have 2 of everything. She says, especially back in the day, this wasn't even existent. This is really a recent phenomenon where people have enough money to build a bigger house and to put in appliances, 2 of each kind. She said that's not the norm. And you don't have to have 2 of everything. And she explained it so simply. For example, the fridge, since everything is in containers and pretty much separated, as long as your meat and dairy are not actually physically touching each other, then there's no issue. You can have in one drawer your cheeses, and then you can have on a different shelf meat that's packaged. And that's fine. You don't have to worry about them mixing. So that's not an issue. In terms of the stove, she says she mostly cooks meat in her kitchen. She doesn't do a lot with dairy at all. For example, she said if her kids want a cheese pizza or something, she has a separate little toaster oven that she uses just for that, to heat up things like that. But also, if you have a fire burning, like a gas stove, then if you just turn on the burner for a few seconds, she says the fire actually neutralizes the stove, and then you can decide if you want to cook meat on that burner or if you want to cook dairy. As long as you're not mixing the 2 ingredients, the fire can help you in that way. It acts as a neutralizer. And then in terms of the sink, she says, basically, I don't defrost my meat in the sink itself. She just doesn't want the meat touching the sink. So what she does is uses a container to defrost whatever she's defrosting, and that's it. And that way she can use the sink to wash whatever she needs, like fruits and vegetables and eggs, whatever it is. So the sink is basically parv. It can go either way. The other thing that she does for Passover, because for Passover, you're supposed to clean the house really, really well, making sure that you don't have any crumbs of any bread products laying around. So people clean a lot and they prepare a lot for Passover. She says she treats chametz, all the leavened products, or products that are made out of rye or wheat or any ingredients that can rise. She treats it like a peanut allergy. She says, imagine you have somebody coming over that's really allergic to peanuts. Well, you do your job to clean everything as best as you can so there's no traces of this allergen. And then to be super safe on top of that, what she does is she covers all her countertops with a plastic wrap. And then even on top of that, she puts this sort of cardboard plastic looking fake countertop. It's really light. It's basically like paper. And it looks like it's marble, but it's really lightweight. So she puts that on top of all her kitchen counters just to make sure that there's not a trace of chametz anywhere in the kitchen. And then, because she says you're not going to get rid of all your chametz products for those 8 days, like you're not just going to throw it away. You would have to, give it away to somebody, because there is the custom to sell all your products to a non-Jew. But in reality, she says, all we do is we tape the cabinets with tape so that nobody can get in there. That way, nobody's touching those chametz products, and there's no risk of accidentally touching or using any kind of bread products or anything made of wheat or rye, etc. And so that's it. So the way she explained it was so simple and so doable. And she even said, I go overboard. She says, don't do what I do, because I go to the extreme, which is understandable. I mean, they lead a congregation, right? There are examples. They are our models. So we can try to be as perfect as they are, but really we don't have to. She says, as long as you cleaned your kitchen and you're not touching any leavened products, you are fine. Don't even overthink it. So that was super interesting to me. And then the men, let's see, what did you guys talk about?
It's just catching up because it's people there that are part of a congregation, but I've never met any of them. So just talking about life. I mean, the older gentleman was telling us about how he worked for the VA and what he does now, and the other one had an interesting life. I don't remember everything he told us, but no, it was just kind of catching up what people do, what they used to do. They're just life conversations.
I think that was the kind of the interesting thing about the Seder is that I think it's pretty customary for rabbis and his family to invite just like random people to the Seder. And then I think it provides an opportunity for the guests to, I don't know, meet new people, to socialize, things like that. So yeah, that was interesting because we didn't really know those people very well. I mean, we had seen them around, but it was interesting to get to know them and get to know their stories because everybody has a really interesting story. For example, the lady that I was talking to with the two kids, she actually is married to a non-Jew. I'm pretty sure he's a Christian. But they decided to raise their kids in Judaism. And so her husband is super on board with everything. And it was interesting to see how he was really welcome at our table. Basically, everybody is always welcome at a Seder. It's just, if you're respectful of the religion, you're always welcome. And then after we had those talks, we lit candles. So it was just like a Shabbat, right? A Shabbat dinner where we light candles. And the Rebbetzin, she had candles for all the women because it's the women that light the candles on Shabbat and for holidays, for special holidays like this. So she made sure that every woman that was there, even the girls, there was a younger girl there, maybe 10, 11 years old, that everybody had a candle to light. So we did that. We said the blessings. And then the real fun began. So we sat down at this beautiful table. It was, you can imagine, for a holiday, beautiful silverware and special cups and glasses and everything. We had the matzah. Interesting too, how many matzah plates, I don't know even how you would call it, but like matzah placements we had.
Yeah, they spread them out throughout the table so you don't have to reach and everybody kind of gets to not share, but the Kiddush plate, which had all the ingredients on it. So
the Seder plate.
Yeah, the Seder plate. So you would have to kind of have your own per family almost.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I thought she actually wanted each family to have their own Seder plate. And so basically, okay, so on the Seder plate, we have all the different ingredients like the egg and the shank bone and the bitter herbs and things like that, right? And then on top of that, they had the special matzah. So the matzah that you see at a typical grocery store, the square matzah, is not really the traditional matzah, right? That's made by machines and it's square and it's not shmura matzah. It's not this kosher matzah, let's say. So they had the real kind, which is this big circular matzah that is made by hand in a stone oven, and it's watched by people to make sure that at no point it touches water and things like this. There's all kinds of rules for that. So this round matzah there's 3 pieces of it, and it's put into a special, I don't want to call it a bag, but it's like a cloth holder, sure, like a matzah holder, right? And it has actually like pockets. So you have the 3 pieces of matzah, and that whole cloth holder of matzah goes right on top of the Seder plate. So that was all set up and very beautiful. And then everybody had a book at their place where they were sitting. So the Haggadah, right? The Haggadah, which is nice because the word Seder actually means order. So when you have this book, the Haggadah, that you read throughout the Seder dinner, the Passover dinner, you basically just follow along. There's an order to everything, to to say which blessings to say when to wash the hands, when to break off the first piece of matzah, when to hide the piece of matzah called the afikomen for the kids to find, and all these things. So we started to read the Haggadah. Was there anything that stood out to you, Roman, about how we read it, or?
No, I mean, it reminded me a lot of kind of when we just came to Russia, from Russia to U.S., our cousins or relatives who helped us move, they used to host these dinners as well. And I was, 14, 15 years old, right, sitting at that table, and we would read for a long time, and it was hard to read because barely spoke any English, and they wouldn't feed us too. It was always like such a pain. It was like you would read for a while and then get a little piece of egg, and it was always like so hungry till you get real food. So this was actually a lot. I mean, it was very similar to it, remind me a lot of it, but yeah, it was kind of flew by. It was easier. I don't know. They just, first of all, they fed us beforehand.
Yeah, which is really smart.
That was very helpful. So you weren't as eager, and then pretty much in the very beginning, you got a little wine. So I was like, okay, now it's more of a casual thing. Let's go.
Right. And also, they really made sure that everyone at the table participated. So everybody had a page or two to read. We would take turns reading, going around the table. When the blessings were in Hebrew, which most of them are, of course, the rabbi and his son and his wife, they would lead these songs and prayers, and we would do our best to, repeat after them or join them. But then everything else is in English. The Haggadah here in the United States, it's written in English. Usually one page is in Hebrew, the next page is in English, so you can read the translation, or you can just read the whole thing in English. And, the main goal of the Seder is to share the story of Passover. And that's exactly what we did. We read the story about how the Jews left Egypt, right? And what happened? Why did they do this? God promised them the Torah and, freedom and all that. So, like I said, everybody took a turn at reading. They told us exactly when to get up and wash our hands, when to fill up another cup of wine. Total, we were supposed to drink 4 cups of wine, which I know my husband was really happy about that because he likes wine. I am a super lightweight, so I tried. And here's the thing. Not only are you supposed to drink the 4 cups of wine, we're talking about full cups of wine. Actually, anytime, like on a Shabbat, for example, or any holidays, when you fill up the cup, you fill it up. You're actually supposed to top it off until it actually spills over. And this is symbolic of our blessings over spilling. Like, we want so many blessings in our life.
Abundance.
Yeah, abundance, right? So at first I was like, all right, fill it up. And then I realized I can barely chug this thing because you're supposed to drink the whole cup of wine at once. Like, you're literally supposed to chug it. And because I'm such a lightweight, I said, okay, next cup is going to be grape juice. And by the way, if you don't drink or don't like wine for some reason, you are absolutely allowed to drink grape juice, which actually our rabbi's wife did throughout.
They had variety. I mean, they had regular wine. They had some very light wine, which was like almost, as weak as beer, like 5% alcohol. Mm-hmm. And then they had grape juice, and people were mixing whatever you want. Because, the trick is not only pour, but you have to drink the whole thing in one shot. And you do that 4 times. So, it takes a little practice.
But actually, we were talking about how I was sitting next to the youngest son of the rabbi, and he's, I think, 11, if I'm not mistaken. And this boy, oh my gosh, he drank the wine no problem. I mean, they start young.
Yeah.
They start practicing,
He drank the light wine, but he was chugging it.
That's right. So anyway, we did that. So some of the food that we saw at the dinner table, of course, there was matzo ball soup. That's like a staple. You have to have that. And then what else? We had some, I think, beef, which was really good. We had potatoes, some salads.
Yeah, it was a couple salads. It wasn't a ton of food, but it was enough. It was kind of because we were there for hours, and you're pretty much eating the entire time.
Right. You break off a piece of matzah here and there. So with the matzah too, we ate it in different ways, right? Like one time we put the horseradish on it. Another time we made a sandwich with the lettuce and I think the bitter herbs or something like that. We also dipped the bitter herbs in salt water. There was that. We had some of the egg. So yeah, you're kind of like munching a little bit throughout the dinner. But overall, I thought it was a pretty simple dinner. It wasn't as extravagant as we have seen before because we had been invited a couple times before to a Shabbat dinner, and I thought that was a little bit more extravagant. But for Passover, I thought it was a little more simple, more plain, but it was really good. And then, so after we washed our hands a couple of times and we filled up the cups several times, there was a point in time where we filled a cup of wine for Elijah the prophet. Do you remember the explanation for that?
I actually don't, but I know you have to fill him a cup, you have to open the door, and it's always the kids who go and look outside that like kind of welcome the spirit in.
Yeah, so Elijah was a prophet, and the tradition is that you fill a cup of wine for him and you wait sort of for him to come in. Yeah. He doesn't come in or anything, but it's symbolic of waiting for this prophet, I think, to tell us when Messiah is coming or something like that. And so, yeah, then everybody who had their own kind of matzah set broke off a piece of the middle matzah and everybody hid it, right? So you could hide the matzah anywhere in the house, on the first floor, and then later the kids would go and search for it, and when the kids do find it, they get some kind of treat or money depending on the agreement between the hosts and the kids. And then what do we do?
So we finished the book. We went through the whole book, right? Pretty much had the prayers, had the 4 glasses of wine. And then it was kind of, okay, I think the rabbi said, like, the official part is now over, so we can just enjoy, basically. He kind of made a joke out of it, but he always does that formal. He's very serious, very formal, and when it's time for prayers, time for all these blessings and ceremonies, but after that, he's kind of leans back, and says, okay, let's just talk, any questions, anything, and he's very open, very patient.
Yeah, no, our rabbi has a really great sense of humor, and we're always laughing and making jokes. And he actually has a really interesting life story. He was born in Russia. He was only 3 months when his parents moved to Israel. But there's still that Russian, spirit in him. His father actually spent many, many years in prison in Russia. In the Gulag. And I don't remember how many years, it
was a few years. And
7 years or something he spent in prison. And his father was Orthodox, and he basically would not give in. He would continue the traditions as best he could inside the prison. And then when Stalin died, he actually was freed. And that's when he started a family, and as soon as possible, they moved to Israel. And so because the Chabad movement in Judaism it originated in Russia, all the original songs, not prayers, but songs that used to be sung, are in Russian. So all of a sudden, we're sitting there at the dinner table, and he and his sons just break out in song in Russian to our surprise, which was so cool. We couldn't believe it. And actually, some songs were even in Ukrainian.
Yeah, they had some. They sang Jewish songs, Russian songs, Ukrainian songs. So it was just kind of after that let's relax part. Everybody had a little wine, so it was just time to have fun.
Exactly. And it was really fun. They would sing and tell us stories, and it was just, a relaxing, awesome time. So we got their house around 8, and we didn't leave until almost 1 a.m.
It flew by, and
totally flew
there's
by.
no clocks. You're not supposed to use your phone because it was on Saturday or Shabbat.
Right.
So we actually didn't know what time it was till we okay, let's kind of wrap it up. People are getting tired.
Yeah, and actually the rabbi's youngest son, he had a little pocket watch. Yeah. Remember? It was so cute. It was like that old style on a chain. Yep. And he looked at it and he was like, well, it's 12:45. We couldn't believe it because the time had just flown by. But also, not only on Shabbat are you not allowed to use electronics, but also on Passover in general, like the first 2 Seders, because the first Seder was on Saturday, the second was on Sunday. Even on Sunday, they couldn't use electronics because you treat it as you would a Shabbat dinner. I mean, a Shabbat holiday. So it was a really cool experience. My husband, he likes to, I don't want to say challenge the rabbi, but he always has tons of questions for him, which is good. I think our rabbi really likes that because it keeps him on his toes. I think he's mentioned that to us before because my husband attends classes with our rabbi, and sometimes we go together, and sometimes the rabbi's wife teaches the class. And my husband is never quiet. He is not afraid to ask, to kind of act like a devil's advocate, because we really want to try and understand Judaism. We want to know why we're doing certain things. And, some things have really great explanations. Other things don't have explanations. But I don't know, do you have an example of something that you've asked the rabbi?
Well, we're trying to just understand the history of it, understand the why, basically. And you're right, it's some things it's a pattern. There's a lot of things that go back to the Torah and the stories and the interpretations of it. Torah is all about interpretations. You can't just read it. You're not going to get even half of the meaning in it, right? So that's why there's all these rabbis and scholars who kind of interpreted it, right? From Rashi to on and on. But some things are just, we're not meant to understand the full meaning yet. And it may sound, I don't know, not arrogant, but kind of just, you don't get it. But no, it's not that you don't get it, it's we, right? There's such a bigger thing out there, right? The God's purpose is so much bigger that sometimes you're not seeing the full picture yet. Right? We're not meant to see the full story just yet. It may happen tomorrow, it may happen the year, may never happen in this lifetime. Could be the next one, right? But it does sound like a good reasoning, a good explanation for things when it's not that you're not allowed to, but it's not revealed yet. And it's valid.
Yeah, I often compare this to parents and kids because, if I try to explain to my 4-year-old daughter right now why there are such high tariffs on certain things, economically speaking, if she's telling me, Mom, why can't we buy this avocado for $5? She's not going to understand my explanation, I don't know, of international trade and tariffs and things like that, right? So similarly with God, because we think of God as a parent, there's some things that we're just not ready yet to understand, to comprehend. We just don't have that bandwidth to, comprehend certain things. And like Roman said, one day maybe we will. We're just maybe not ready for it. And so today, like I said, is the last day of Passover. And yesterday we went to services at our synagogue, and I spoke to one of our friends. Actually, she's a friend that we've known her for a while. She is Jewish, and actually part of her family is Orthodox Jewish, but she's kind of gotten a little bit more into the new agey kind of movement, if you will. But she's still very much a Jew. Like I said, we saw her yesterday at our synagogue. But I've actually spoken about her in some of my previous episodes. She heals with her hands, right? And she also, when she meditates, she has these visions and things. And she told me yesterday, because we haven't seen each other in a few months, she's telling me, Yulia, you will not believe how many people every day are becoming more spiritual and opening up to all these new possibilities and just like being elevated spiritually. So I think this is a great way to end this Passover this year. At least for me, for my family, I feel like we've grown so much. We've learned so much this year. And it makes me happy that no matter which way you look at spirituality, as long as you believe in God and you are being elevated somehow spiritually, you're getting closer to God, you're exploring God, that is all that matters. That is the goal of at least the Jews for everyone to find God. So thank you, husband, for doing this with me.
Anytime.
Until next time, guys. Bye.